I've been reading quite a few short stories lately. This past weekend I read a collection edited by Joan Parr, and it's called Manitoba Stories, Secondhand Find. This one was published in 1981, and it contained stories written by authors from the province of Manitoba. It's kind of a hit or miss collection, but thankfully the hits outnumbered the misses. And I'm going to talk about two of my favorites briefly, and briefly mention the one that I didn't like, just to give you a taste of this collection if you should come across it yourself. So there's 14 stories in here, and by far my favorite was The Dollhouse by Helen Mulligan. In this story, a father is positively obsessed with crafting a dollhouse for his daughter. Now, it's told from the daughter's point of view, and she can't figure out why nobody asked her if she even wanted a dollhouse, because she doesn't really want this dollhouse. She's not going to play with it. As time drags on and it's taking longer and longer for the father to finish it, she definitely knows that she's not going to want this dollhouse. And the dollhouse causes some tension in the house because the father is putting in carpeting and buying little dishes and spending money they don't really have to spare on hinges and little screws and stuff, so that he can work on this dollhouse. And that's what he does when he's not at work. He sits and he works on this dollhouse, and his wife starts to feel resentment, at least from the perspective of their daughter. Until one evening, the daughter comes out after hearing a crash and finds her mother on the floor with this broken dollhouse. And through this emotional conversation, the daughter comes to realize that it wasn't the dollhouse that her mother resented, and it wasn't the dollhouse that her father was building. Her father was building this dollhouse as a substitute for creating a real home for the family. They couldn't afford to put in nice carpeting and buy nice dishes, and so they were in miniature version in this dollhouse, and he was devoting all this time to creating a good home for his daughter, even though it was really a dollhouse and not an actual home. And because the wife realized that it would never be more than a dollhouse, she was losing hope over them ever having this home on a real scale. Because of that, she resented the dollhouse, and every time she saw this carpeting, every time she saw these dishes, she resented the fact that they existed only in the dollhouse. And so she has this moment where she goes and she destroys this dollhouse. Only we don't see her do it because we're looking at things through the eyes of the daughter. And she believes that her mother did it on purpose, but her mother kind of rambles something about not realizing what she had done. And so it's kind of a sad story in that light, but it does end on a high note, which is good. Another one of my favorites was A Dark Horse on a Dark Night by Charles Wilkins. This is a story about a father coming to terms with the fact that his son has committed a crime, that his son is a bad person, that something went wrong somewhere along the way, and his son is on trial, and he's holding back a piece of information that nobody knows he knows, even his wife doesn't know, what he knows. And this information essentially confirms for him the fact that his son has committed this crime. But he doesn't tell anyone, and because he doesn't tell anyone, there's not enough evidence, and his son walks free. He confronts his son about this, and instead of being thankful, of reconciling with his father, the son lashes out and shows his true colors, and the father is left kind of existing in this horrible, horrible state. No high note to end this story. My least favorite in the collection, though, was Mr. Smith by Graham Herbert. My main problem with it is that it made a gay man the butt of the joke and essentially compared him to the same level of freakiness as Bigfoot. At least that's my interpretation of the story. Essentially, a gay man who's in the closet gets drunk and assaults another man on a plane. This manly man gets pissed off and throws him out the door of the plane. He happens to have a tent in his backpack. The tent billows open and serves as a makeshift parachute, preventing him from dying when he falls into the lake below. He gets himself out of the lake, sees these giant footprints on the ground, and immediately thinks Bigfoot. Turns out it's not Bigfoot. It's a man with exceptionally large feet who, because of his large feet, has cut himself off from society and is hiding in the Canadian wilderness. They have a moment, and then they head back to his cabin. And that's the end of the story. And it's supposed to be funny. I mean, in some ways it is, but in other ways it just leaves me feeling a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit annoyed, and a little bit confused as to what on earth is going on with this story. Overall, though, this was a nice collection of stories. Many that I did like, only a couple that I didn't like. Something I will definitely dip into again, and if you stumble across this somewhere, I would definitely recommend you pick it up, because it is a great collection, and that is Manitoba Stories, edited by Joan